Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Now, normally when I see an animation like this, which is looking at the surface wind field in the day here on Friday, I often think about what this could potentially mean for the Pacific Northwest and California, specifically when I see very large low-pressure systems that are anywhere in and around Alaska or the Gulf of Alaska. We typically have to watch out for these to potentially basically bring an enormous amount of moisture that comes streaming in these giant atmospheric rivers that can bring us a lot of precipitation. That's what I would normally think about when I see this. But when I look in the upper levels of the atmosphere and I see that this is the way the flow pattern is going, it gets me thinking about something a little bit different, and that is the potential for blocking things up. We have a very large blocking high that is sitting over California right now, and it is the reason why we have seen such an increase over the last 4 to 5 days in our fire threat. And that blocking high seems to be more of a feature that will be sitting somewhere between here and here in the coming days. In other words, we're going to continue to see large ridges forming. The one we're seeing right now is here, but the potential for it to reform somewhere along the west coast of North America and the Gulf of Alaska over the next 10 to 15 days is of a very high probability. So we have to get in then to the discussion of what this particular pattern means. And you've already seen it over the last 3 days. We've seen a lot of fires that have broken out in California. I'm going to be honest with you, of all the different types of severe weather that I have studied, that I've experienced, the most terrifying is a fast-moving fire. It is, for those of you that have never experienced it, that are watching this video, to even use the word terrifying it doesn't even come close to what it is like. We can see here on satellite, and this is an interesting satellite animation. We're looking down here at near infrared and using a blue channel. So basically we're able to see the heat from the fire. This one's the one that is north of Santa Rosa there that you can see the Kincaid fire. And you can also see here the smoke and the direction that it is currently moving. And that wind, as you notice here, which is basically coming from the east to the west, is the situation that often drives our driest conditions across California and across the west. And those dry conditions are expected to continue. This looking later on this evening, we don't have to look out that far, but just this evening, we will once again be seeing our relative humidities in the Central Valley of California, both San Joaquin and Sacramento here, down close to single digits. And when you get down into the LA basin and on the other side of the Mojave Desert here, we'll see those relative humidities maybe getting down to 5%. And with the winds we're anticipating, this is going to continue to be a desperate situation when it comes to how weather conditions will come together to increase fire threat. So this is an animation through the day on Friday, now into Saturday morning, Saturday evening, and getting into Sunday of what we're anticipating in terms of wind speeds. And we do notice that with that upper level flow pattern featuring that broader ridge, we think things might be calm at times, but the wind threat is going to increase every single day. And so we're looking at wind gusts here really cranking up over the next few days. It looks as though by our modeling efforts that not only will they be strong on Saturday, but getting into Saturday night and into Sunday, that's when the greatest wind threat seems to be showing up here in our near-term models. So as a result of that, we can see that the smoke from these fires, this is our high-resolution rapid refresh smoke product looking at vertically integrated smoke. In the near term, a lot of the smoke spreads through California before the stronger winds on Sunday come through and blow a lot of that out to open ocean here. So this is a situation not only that we're going to be dealing with the threat of fire, but very poor air quality across the state of California because of these fires. So the National Weather Service has already got high wind warnings, high wind advisories. It's got red flag warnings, extreme fire danger in 2 different areas. There's a lot of overlapping warnings here for the state of California due to the setup that we just discussed. And I don't want you to think I'm not talking about anywhere else in the West. Look up here in parts of Montana where we also have high wind warnings again today, and as you get into higher elevations, winter weather advisories as well. So this is a situation that both wind and humidity are continuing to cause major threats across the western part of the United States here. What is not a threat is precipitation, because this is just looking out over the next 10 days. Now, I told you, when I see those big low pressure systems cranking up like right here, we start to think that they could potentially come into the West Coast. But as we discussed, big blocking high pressure center is going to send much of that moisture here to British Columbia and up into Alaska in the coming days. And so we notice here that outside of maybe some elevation dependent precipitation in the Cascade Mountains, we will see some snow coming in here to the Rocky Mountains. Other than that, this situation is a dry one for the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast of the United States in the near term. I can even show it to you in the ensembles. This is about the only place where the European and the GFS agree on something right now is the western half of the United States. And what we've got here is European ensemble out the next 15 days, GFS ensemble out the next 15 days. You can see their patterns are very similar. As these deeper troughs come swinging in and sweeping like that, yeah, we're talking about snow here in the mountains, which is shown up on both models, but that broader ridge that's over in this side, keeping things very dry compared to average here on the west coast of the United States. Just to show you what those snowfall totals look like, you can see they're confined primarily when you're coming from the west here to our much higher elevations. We're not picking up much snow at all forecasts in the Sierra Nevada. And as we get up into the coastal ranges here in the Pacific Northwest, Cascades, Olympic Mountains, we're not seeing much. It's going to be really in the spine of the Rockies that we're seeing our snowfall totals really pile up here. And this is what's happening. This is that precipitable water animation. Notice how much dry air keeps coming in like this, and all the moist air keeps coming, it's somewhere in British Columbia, it's somewhere into Alaska. That ridge is protective, and that is why we're just missing out on this precipitation here in the coming days. The atmosphere is keeping the drier air in place. So looking at temperatures here, let's just kind of get over to that discussion. I've got the GFS on the left, and I have the European over here on the right. A little bit different projections, but you can get the idea here. In general, California is going to be on the warmer side of things, but we're going to keep seeing these troughs build in this direction, which means we're going to be keeping parts of the Pacific Northwest on the slightly cooler than average over the next 5 days. We do have actually a couple of warmer days coming up, but slightly cooler than average when we put it all together. But coming down the spine of the Rocky Mountains and getting out into the high plains, that's where the cooler air is going to sit. This is now looking at days 6 through 10. We do see with that ridge kind of coming back into the West Coast, a rebound in our temperatures in both models here, while the really cold air toward Halloween really just piles up here in the central part of the United States. Both models picking up on that quite well. And even going out here to the 11 to 15 day time period, I think the GFS might be biasing this a little bit too cold. We could get, like the European says, quite a bit more warmer weather sneaking up here in the west coast of the United States. And just to kind of piggyback on what I discussed on Wednesday in the long range forecast, I want to go right back to our long-range models and just show you this. This is now forecasting the entire month of November, and this is looking at the European ensemble running its weekly format, so it means it only comes in every 4 days. So this is brand new as of last night. Remember, we were talking about how the western half of the United States was really showing up on the drier side of things, and the main wet corridor was tucked away here across, this section of the eastern U.S. We've now got another set of model runs that are picking up on that same dry pattern here. So after a very wet September and early October, especially in the Pacific Northwest, which wreaked havoc on our harvest efforts for certain crops, it also was tough on hay and the cold weather to shut everything down, and then the hard freezes really made things difficult on like the onion harvest, the potato harvest, and so many other things. We're now coming in with this, what looks to be a very dry pattern over the next month compared to average. It does not mean that it won't precipitate. It's just meaning we're normally going into our wet season now. So to see this drier pattern show up here consistently over the last 8 days in this longer range model outlook is something we've got to be thinking more about. And I'll give you those updates as I research it over the weekend. I hope you look forward to our content next week so that we can keep a close eye on this very interesting pattern that seems to be flip-flopping quite rapidly for the western United States. Please be careful in California in the coming days. Keep a very close eye on the National Weather Service and the risks that they are communicating to the public. It is a desperate situation in some places with the fires, something we avoided much of this summer. But now as we get into fall, deep into fall, the risk is elevated again. I'll keep a close eye on it for you, report to you back next week. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.